been hopping around the WSI network chatting with franchisees, experts, staff, co-founders to really paint the picture of what makes WSI and how it has lasted and thrived for 30 years. And that's what brings us to today, speaking with Dan Monaghan, one of the co-founders of WSI, joining me from Toronto. Dan, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Great to be here, Ryan.
Great to have you. So this is always fun for me because I start these interviews off with the same question is what is your WSI origin story? And usually the question answered, well, I hopped into the network at this point, but you've got a great perspective. Well, you are the origin story as
Right.
part of it. So tell me sort of what led to WSI becoming what it is today and how you found yourself in that seat.
Yeah, great questions. Back in 1995, just prior to that, I was running a publishing company and I was producing something we called an audio magazine back then. Today, you'd call them podcasts, but it was called The Inside Edge. And every month, I would devour as much content as I could, everything from economics to technology to politics to everything that was going on in the world. And back in those days, this was before the internet, really, certainly before it was what it is today. I would absorb a lot of that content through CD-ROMs. And I would go into the studio every month and I would record this audio. And we had a list of subscribers, thousands of subscribers around North America, and we would send this audio out every month. And so it would be for business leaders just to stay abreast on what was going on. And back then, I was talking a lot about something that was called the information superhighway. It was on front page of all the newspapers and business magazines, and everyone was talking about there was going to be this 500 channel universe. But nobody really knew if it was going to be through fiber optic, was it going to be through satellites, was it going to be microwaves? And then some people actually thought it could be this internet thing, which at the time was really just a bunch of connected computers that was sending email around. Um, then in 1993, Mark Andreessen and a team of researchers from the University of Illinois invented something called Mosaic, which became the first internet browser. And as I found out about that, I said, we're a publishing company. We need to have one of these web pages, which is what they called them back in the day. And so I tried to find a coder who could program one of these things and who could write HTML, and it looked terrible. And then I found a designer who could design one of these web pages, but it took forever to download on the page. And even if I could get both of those on the same wavelength, neither of them knew anything about internet marketing, like how to drive traffic to that web page. And this was in the year BG, 2 years before Google. So search engines didn't exist. And so I had to learn a lot about programming websites, about designing websites, about driving traffic. And we solved that for the publishing company. But then I said, somebody needs to do this for other companies. Everyone's going to have this same problem. They're going to need a website. And that was really where WSI was born, with this vision of delivering. At the time, it was like building websites for other companies. It was something that no one had and everyone was going to need. And so that was the service that we decided to deliver. At the time, people used to find websites through the Internet Yellow Pages. It was a book about this thick, and you'd go through it based on the topic you'd want, and then you'd find a URL and you'd type it into a browser. But as the internet evolved and search engines became, available, then it was a matter of how do we optimize for these search engines? Well, then search engine optimization became a thing, and then e-commerce, and then all the other social and mobile and everything else that the internet really gave birth to. And then, of course, in couple of years ago with the birth of ChatGPT, it started all over again, really at the birth of an entirely new revolution. So you mentioned earlier, 30 years. Well, 30 years in digital terms is like 300 years. I mean, these are
Yeah.
like dog years. A generation happens in 2 years. I mean, just look at what's happened since the birth of ChatGPT. The world has changed in just a couple of years. And that's the industry we're in, an industry where things are radically changing very quickly. And we're constantly codifying that and systematizing it for our clients to make sure that they're on the leading edge, that they're harnessing this capability and getting that competitive advantage in their marketplace.
One of the really common themes I've heard from the other WSI experts that I've spoken with is this idea of constantly adapting. It is never, all right, we figured out the thing. That's it. We're good. We got it. There's always a new toy to play with. And also the caution with playing with them and making sure that the systems are in place and make sense within the network. And that requires obviously constant evolving, constant change. And so I'm curious for you, Dan, you got in at the start really of not just WSI, but also, like you said, the internet, the change, information superhighway, all these terms. And now here we are in the birth of the AI era. So I'm curious, how have you seen WSI itself evolve over the last 30 years? And have you had to evolve with it? Or have you just been able to kind of adapt what you took from publishing and apply it to, this new digital lens?
So, there's this concept of lifelong learning, and as humans, we need to embrace lifelong learning. But there's also this concept of a learning organization, and we have designed WSI from the ground up as a learning organization. Now, what do I mean by that? It's extremely powerful. Let me give you an example. Back in the early 2000s, there was this concept called grid computing. Before cloud computing existed, there was this technology that connected all, millions of computers around the world and used up the excess computing power of each computer. So all these computers, as they came together, kind of created a supercomputer kind of brain power, right? And they used this for learning to discover new drugs and protein folding and SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So it was the early 2000s, but they were using computing power that was way beyond what one computer could do. Now, once cloud computing came along, then that kind of went the way of the dinosaur. But what WSI has done, using this collective intelligence, we have harnessed the brain power of our global network of consultants to provide us a competitive advantage that can't be matched by any of our competitors. So every one of the individuals that are part of the WSI network, they're learning. They're learning what's working in Australia, what's working in their country, in their sector, what's happening in the financial services sector, or what's happening in automotive. And you take all those learnings and you harness that together, and it creates incredible learning capability that always keeps us ahead of the competition. And that trickles down into the value that we deliver to our clients. Because when our clients are working with WSI, they always are on the leading edge, because not just how smart their consultant is, but how smart the organization that they're part of is. So some people would say, well, how have you guys adapted to become a world leader in AI consulting so quickly? Well, because it's not just one person, it's not just one office, it's offices around the planet that are continually absorbing things. And that applies to any one technology or discipline within our space of digital marketing. So you take a look at SEO, search engine optimization. We used to build websites for humans to read. And then all of a sudden that changed, where we started writing and building websites for Google to read. And now today we're building websites for AI to read, and ultimately agents to read, AI agents. So the way SEO is done continues to evolve. We launched something a number of years ago called adaptive SEO. And it's the whole premise that SEO needs to continue to evolve very quickly. And that really has never been more important than with the birth of ChatGPT. Because now people are thinking not about how do I rank in Google, not about how do I rank in the Google snippets, at the top, the answers now that Google gives you, but how do I rank in ChatGPT? When people start searching for my products or my services, how do I rank in ChatGPT? Because ChatGPT is now driving traffic to websites. And what most people don't realize is the quality of that traffic is significantly higher than any of the traffic that Google has delivered. Now, the converse of that is people are finding that their website traffic is totally collapsing. Their Google traffic is collapsing because of now people aren't going to Google in the same way. They're using, AI to search. So you can imagine how much SEO has had to evolve. And again, WSI clients are on the leading edge of this because we use adaptive SEO, which is now making all those transitions from traditional search to AI search.
It's difficult. You talked about adaptive learning and constantly learning. It's kind of fun for me when I get to chat with people who are, years ahead of me and kind of inspire me to want to learn as much. And I'm curious to hear this because this is a question I've been asking all of the folks within the network that I've had a chance to speak with. And that's one of the themes of this whole campaign is 30 years, 30 lessons. And so I'm curious, Dan, what's your lesson? What have you learned on this 30-year journey that's really stuck with you, even as what you're fundamentally doing and adapting to has changed?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, the internet continues to change. The world continues to change. The economic environment continues to change. And, a lot of times people are thinking, well, where are things going? Like, how do we optimize for the future? How do we optimize for the world that's different in the future? And in some ways, that's not the right question to ask. The question is, what won't change? And how do we optimize for what we know won't change? And one of the things that has not changed since 1995 is that people will continue to need this digital presence. They're going to need a way to drive traffic to that digital presence. And then they're going to need a way of converting that traffic into customers. And whether that digital property was a website, whether it's a social presence, whether it's an identity that is in a large language model, that presence needs to be somewhere. Then we need to map traffic, or humans. We got to somehow get eyeballs on that. We need to bring awareness to this company, whether we're talking to people through a website or through a social presence or through an LLM. We got to get visibility on this company. And then ultimately, we got to turn that visibility into action, into new customers for that client. So all the context continues to change. All the things, that the ways we do those things are the same, but we're still actually doing the same thing we were doing 30 years ago, which was helping companies adapt to where technology is, helping them find new customers there, and then helping them embed those new relationships into revenue as they grow their business, how they gain market share, how they gain competitive advantage. So circling back to your question, what is the lesson? Well, everyone's always thinking that things are going to change and it's going to be different in the future, and it absolutely will be. We are at the birth of a new revolution with AI, but it still will come down to our ability to get a client's vision, their message, their products, their services, their purpose out to the marketplace and embrace new relationships to generate new customers. So it's the things that won't change, and we need to continue to lean into. That's why WSI's tagline is, embrace digital, stay human. Mm-hmm. Leave the embracing digital to us. We're going to help you embrace digital. We're going to keep you on the leading edge, but don't think that the future is all about just robots and AI. There's an important role that humans have to play in the future. We harness the technology so that we can be more human.
Right. So what's some advice that you would give to someone who's maybe just joining the WSI network or is considering, starting a business with you guys and really taking on your work? I mean, what kind of advice do you think would really set someone up for success as if they're trying to hop in right now, as like you said, we're in a new tech revolution?
Yeah. So, one of the things that we're obviously, there's a massive wave that's about to hit, right? Because, everyone talks about how many millions of jobs are going to be lost with AI. People talk about, the massive disruption in industries within companies. And all of that's true. There will be many jobs lost. There will be, many companies that are basically collapse as a result of AI. But at the same time, there will be many new jobs created. There will be many new industries created. There will be many new companies within those industries created. So there is this massive wave. And sometimes people call a wave a tsunami, right? And because there is a negative side effect of some waves. But the question is, do you have a surfboard? It takes more than just knowing there's a wave coming. You need to know how to capitalize on that wave, how to get on top of it and surf it. And that's what WSI is really all about. It's about giving our consultants a surfboard to surf that wave, giving our clients a surfboard to surf that wave. And so it's one thing to know the wave's coming, but it's another thing to say, what is my strategy to harness the power of that wave so that I have competitive advantage? And so the thing that I would say that is a really important subset of surfing that wave is, and I talked about being a learning organization, but you need to be a learning individual. You need to embrace learning, because what the world is today, it will be different tomorrow. And for some people, that's scary. And if that's scary, then this is not the right business to be part of. It's not the right industry to be part of. You need to really hunker down if that scares you, because the world is going to be very different, and that's not going to be great for some people, and it'll be great for others. If you get excited about the world tomorrow being different than it is today, then there's probably not a better place to be in any industry than on the leading edge of AI. And being that Sherpa that helps your clients navigate that wave, it helps them understand how to harness the power of that. So I think it really comes down to that self-assessment. Do I love change? Do I love continuing to learn? If so, you probably couldn't find a better place to be.
Dan, this is probably going to be the hardest question, or maybe you know it right off the top of your head. If you had to describe WSI in a single word, what would that word be? And tell me why.
It's a great question. Alchemy.
That's a new one. I like that.
If we look back in history, the great scientists, the great thinkers of our time would labor over in their labs over a candlelit room, trying to convert ordinary metals into gold, because they knew that if they could do that, they could unlock this incredible wealth creation. And really, in so many ways, WSI consultants are digital alchemists. We are going into businesses, helping them unlock this hidden treasure within their business, helping turn maybe data. Some of the most valuable assets companies have are not even listed on their balance sheet. If you look at, for example, their customer list, like we can take that customer list of dead leads that are years old, and we can turn that into new customers. We can bring life back to those dead leads. We can, just imagine you're purchasing a home, a $200,000, $300,000 home, and it's all contents included. So you're taking a tour through the home, you're deciding whether you want to buy it, and you take a walk upstairs into the attic. And leaning against the rafters is this painting. It's a beautiful painting. It's kind of dusty, and you're thinking, I wonder what that is. I mean, it's all contents included. And you reach down and pick it up, and you blow the dust off of it. In the corner, it kind of looks like Rembrandt. Could that be the lost Rembrandt? Well, it turns out it is. And what has happened to that home is it's gone from being worth 300,000 to maybe 300 million. And so that's very much what WSI consultants do, is we help businesses find those hidden Rembrandts in their attics. We help them unlock that value in their business that is really like digital alchemy. So that, if there was one word, alchemy is probably a good one, because it says a lot about what we do.
It's a very cool one. It's a great choice. I mean, this is why I love asking the question, because I get a lot of community, family. Family's a big one. Collaboration and alchemy. Now I love it. It's painting a very clear and obvious picture of the entire network. So I appreciate it, Dan, and I appreciate your time today.